'Tis I, your old pal, King Chuck, and I want to do a hero of the day. We haven't done hero of the day in quite some time, and I got to do, earlier this year, a movie from last year, of course, won big at the Oscars, called Anora. And I think a lot of you never even heard of the film until it won all those Oscars this year. And of course, Mikey Madison, the film's big star, she became Best Actress. Film won Best Picture. I think it won like 5 Oscars. And the film was about a woman who is a stripper. And what happened is basically the movie explains what strippers and, sex workers in general have to go through in life. And, some of it is, basically the movie explains that they're just like all of us. They're struggling to make ends meet. Anora's character was, she was working at the strip club in New York City, and she meets up with a son of a Russian oligarch who, they get married, and now they want the parents find out about what happened, and now they're trying to get the marriage annulled. So it turns in from a sex film into a caper, pretty much. So anyway, of course, Mikey Madison explained that she learned from a lot of fellow strippers and sex workers. She even thanked them when she was accepting her Oscar. And, yesterday, my good friend Darren Gibson, who himself worked at a strip club, obviously not as a stripper. I don't think he would ever want to get up on stage and show everybody get naked in front of a bunch of guys. Of course, he's lost a lot of weight. I heard that he is doing the GLP stuff. And he said that he's actually lost some poundages from all that, which is really cool. Of course, I know that eating a lot of protein helps a lot too with weight loss. So anyway, but still, I don't know but yeah, he worked as a strip club manager and DJ. He posted something on Facebook the other day about strippers, and for the second year in a row, the number one donor of toys to a children's hospital in Portland, Oregon, were all female strippers. They just, and it makes me think about how much strip clubs actually give back to the community. There were times I went to Deja Vu, and they've, would do these $5 dances that would help raise money for charity, and they raised a lot of money not too long ago. So a couple of years ago, there was this massive tornado that ripped through parts of this town called Portage. And Portage, of course, is a suburb of Kalamazoo. And there was a lot of damage. People lost homes and businesses. Deja Vu actually stood up and donated a lot of stuff to the people of Portage. And I'm like, it really shows how nice the adult entertainment industry truly, positively is. I fucking hate it when these right-wing assholes, these ballless Jesus freaks, will stand up and say, well, they're a disgrace to the community, they're disgusting, and they try to link strip clubs to crime and violence, and yet, I'm actually driving down 54th Street here in Wyoming, and I just passed a Walmart, believe it or not, New Year's Eve a couple of years ago. bunch of black kids came in and shot up the place. And it's like, I'm scared to even go there. It's like Walmart, it's like, it's like there's no push to stop Walmart. But strip clubs, we can't have that because they're not family friendly, because people look at Walmart as family friendly. And yet, of course, one of the big news stories here in Michigan this past year was that there was a stabbing at a Walmart in Traverse City, where I grew up. 10 people were stabbed. Thankfully, nobody murdered. But still, it shows how fucked up Walmart really is. There's more crimes that happen at Walmart than strip clubs. And people are like, well, strip clubs are evil. Strip clubs destroy families. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? Back in 2016, right here in Grand Rapids, there was this really disgusting old lady named Judy Rose. And she was the head of the Black Hills Citizens Group. She got the city of Grand Rapids to boycott nude dancing, full nude dancing, because even topless dancing, all because of her personal morals. And not only that, she got major support from, allegedly the DeVos family. So the story was, the DeVos, she appeared in a commercial when Dick DeVos ran for governor of Michigan. And she got $80,000 to appear in one of Dick DeVos's commercials. But yeah, it was like, it really, Dick, what's sad is you look at the DeVos family and how much they've spent over the years on ultra right-wing causes, like not just getting rid of strip clubs, but also getting rid of gay marriage. And of course, now they're behind this really fucked up project here in Grand Rapids. They're building a brand new soccer stadium, Amway Stadium, as it's called. And I think to myself, this is what really positively pisses me off. So, soccer has become the, to me, soccer has become the right-wing idiot sport du jour of, out there. Look at what happened recently with Donald Trump. Donald, FIFA gave him a medal. Yeah, some stupid peace medal. And I'm like, yeah, I can go on and on. I am not a huge fan of soccer. Sorry. I'd rather, stay warm in a nice, clean strip club than to go into some cold-ass soccer stadium and watch a bunch of guys in shorts run around. And, yeah, I can go on and on. But anyway, so Donald Trump, so anyway, I can go on and on. But the reality, folks, is that, I'm tired of people who like to say that people who go to strip clubs are losers. People who go to strip clubs are, sorry, there's a lot of bad drivers in Grand Rapids. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, I can go on and on. But, the sad truth about, you see, folks, there's for the longest time, I've heard it. People who go to strip clubs are losers. And, you gotta walk a mile in, the adult entertainment industry's shoes. Look at my life. I was bullied a lot as a kid growing up in tiny Elk Rapids, Michigan. I told you the sad story. There was a girl at my school who was morbidly obese and had BO problem, and the kids were just, you know, would like to see, you know, tried to get me to be with her, and you know, I promised myself when I was a kid I would be only with beautiful women. And you know, the bullying kept going through high school, and my mom only made things worse when she hooked me up with a fat girl, you know, white trash bitch who, you know, was very ugly on the outside and inside. You know, she was ultra religious, and so was her entire family. And it was like, you know, it's like, why me? And even worse, you know, instead of going to a college where, you know, there were a lot of chicks and beautiful girls, they put me in a tech school. And it's like for every 20 guys, there was only one girl. And most of the women there weren't even that attractive. But then somebody hooked me up to Deja Vu in Kalamazoo. And this was back when they were downtown in that ratty old, it was an adult theater from way back in the day. But then they turned it into a strip club. And guess what? I've had, you know, it's like I had a better experience with strippers than I've had with people in normal life, you know? And I look at Judy Rose and look at what she did to Grand Rapids. She said, well, you know, the crime rate will go down. No, it hasn't. I already told you what has happened in Grand Rapids. And even worse, you know, there have been a lot of guys who have, you know, put cameras underneath girls' skirts, and they were caught. And of course, some of the girls were underage. And of course, in my case, I told you, you know, a few days ago that there, you know, there was a security guard at Rivertown Crossings who accused me of putting a camera under girls' skirts. And because of that, I haven't been back since. And then they kicked out a guy who had Down syndrome. And I'm like, you know, this is why I don't go to Rivertown Crossings, period, end stop. They will never see my money ever again. I don't give a flying fuck. But if you treat people like shit, then you don't deserve to get paid. Sorry, not sorry. And, you know, and now, of course, that's another problem. We have a president, Donald Trump, who himself, he doesn't even go to church. And yet he is trying to tell people he pretty much subscribes to the ultra-right-wing way of worshiping Jesus. You know? Let me tell you something real sad that happened during the holidays. There was a church in Texas, and they had this monstrous stage show. And it was a big mega church, big Baptist church. And there were people hanging on wires, playing musical instruments, and they even had a Santa, you know, flying around the, you know, around the auditorium. What the fuck is wrong here? It's like they want to turn church into a rock concert. And they do this because they think that's going to bring people back to church. But instead, they're just making it into something that is not necessarily the most Christian thing in the world. And meanwhile, for, you know, for generations, these same people have been going after the porn industry. You know, back in the 60s, you had people like Charles Keating producing shitty films like Perversion for Profit and Pages of Death. You know, they're all on YouTube, and basically they try, you know, he tries to tell everyone that if you look at side boob, you're going to go to hell. You're going to go out and murder people. No. The truth is, and yet Charles Keating He became a convicted felon because he got he was a big savings and loan guy, and he ended up stealing millions from people. He's a swindler. Hell, my former church in Traverse City, where I went to, well, by Traverse City, New Hope Community Church, they were really reaming everyone on telling everyone that porn is bad for you, and yet their youth pastor, he ended up killing himself. He committed suicide because he stole $500,000 from his ministry. I mean, they're all crooks, folks. They don't give a flying fuck about you or me. And, they cry that, and yet you look at all these churches. Recently, the Grand Rapids Diocese, it was discovered that over the years, a lot of their priests, dozens, like over 80 priests, have been discovered that they were all raping children. These are disgusting people, folks. They want, they're trying to tell you that, porn is evil, porn is bad, and, that's where all the rapists are. And, something, the truth is, I think most people who work in the strip club industry actually have morals. They know that you're not out there to ruin a kid's life. And it's your body and your choice. They don't get, and what's more pathetic is, you look at the last two mayors Grand Rapids has, George Hartwell and Rosalind Bliss. They put their names on the anti-strip club law. And yet they're both Democrats, or Democrats in name only, as I like to call them. And I know. You see, I'm 44, I'll be 45 in May. And I've had nothing but bad relationships in my life with women. And a lot of it's due to my autism, and most of the women who do want to talk to me, they're too far away. They don't have one girl that I'm actually chatting with right now, she actually lives in Detroit. No lie, Detroit. But there's another girl I've been chatting with, she's from Muskegon, and, and it's like she only talks to me like once a day. And she says that she has no family here, and it's tough to get the ball rolling with some people. And I look at my, one of the things I look at, my life is church. And, I've told you this story before. I did go to a church here in Grand Rapids, and it was one of the more liberal churches in town. But I quit because of these reasons. The big reason why was because there was a guy there who, the story was the church built a big apartment complex for people with disabilities, Section 8 place. And what happened was one of the guys who lived there also attended this church, and he had one problem after another. And one of the problems was definitely money. He had no money. He asked me for rides and money, and he thought that, and basically so he really got into me. In, the late 2010s, early 2020s were hard on me. Because, part of it was because of COVID, and part of it was because of, the deaths of my grandma and my aunt. And, so what happened was, I had this woman live with me. And she had major drug problems. She tried to hide them from me. She was taking money from me. She was taking my car away from me. She even took my phone away from me because she had just a piece of shit phone. And what she did to me was, so while I was dealing with her, I was dealing with this guy from church, and he was pleading to me to get rid of her. And he got mad at me. So the story was, I finally got rid of her, but he wanted to come over and help me clean up my apartment. And I told him, no, I need alone time. And he got mad at me for that. And he finally, and of course my car needed to be cleaned out, so he actually helped me with that. And while we were cleaning out my car, the whole time he was telling me that you need to put our relationship before anyone else's. And the guy was sounding like he basically wanted him to replace everybody in my life. He basically wanted to give me the message that you need to put another man in your life than a woman. And it's like the whole fucking time he made me sit there and piss and moan about, he claimed that there were people coming to his apartment and stealing things from him. I mean, it was schizophrenia. One time he was taken into a mental hospital, and he wanted me to believe that people were robbing him, and it's like the guy was fucked up. I mean, he was always asking for rides. One time he had me, he was very obsessed with this girl that went to our church who also had mental problems. They were actually neighbors in that apartment complex. And they were both mentally screwed up in the head. And then what happened was, it's like he didn't know, he wasn't very intelligent. It's like one time he wanted me to go to his insurance company. He wanted me to take him there because he claimed that people were stealing shit from his car. And his car didn't lock very well because it was a rusty old Saturn. And it's like he only had PLPD, and I even knew, dude, you are such a dumbass. It's like and yet he wanted me to be his personal servant. And finally, the final shoe dropped. Oh yeah, another thing he wanted me to do was to harass his ex-girlfriend's sister. Help him harass. He wanted me to be on his team. And guess what happened? I was finally told that, get this, there was a guy, so he actually went to his ex-girlfriend's sister's house by himself, and the long story short was that she called the cops on him. And in my life, I've never, ever had a cop arrest me for anything. And you know what, folks? It was like the more I was hanging out with this guy, the more he was asking me to get me into trouble. And I said, and the final shoe dropped when he begged me to give him $500. $500 fucking dollars. And the reason why was because so he could have the money to fix his car. And I said, so I got rid of, so this is what happened. I unfriended him on Facebook. I blocked his number. And I even stopped going to church. He was the final shoe. But there were other nails in the coffin, folks. Another nail was that the church didn't have a lot of young women who attended. I mean, it was an old people's church, pretty much. But they also were opening the doors up to the LGBTQ community. And there were far more gay men than there were women. And it was kind of a turnout for me. I mean, I'm not trying to be bad. I'm not trying to be homophobic. But what I'm trying to say is, I would like to be with girls. I mean, I'm always on cloud nine with a girl. I've always been on cloud nine with a woman. But, true story, one of the biggest cop-outs to me at this church was, so I was sitting alone in this pew, and there was always this gay couple who sat on the other end of the pew. And a bunch of other gay guys sat there because what happened was our pastor at the time, who was this openly gay woman, asked everybody in the congregation, to have a conversation about the sermon. And everyone turned over, and I was alone. It was like I was now the odd man out in this whole congregation. And all these guys were huddled together chatting with each other. And, to me, it's, my stepdad, I told you the other day about how much of an asshole he was. But the best thing that ever came from my stepdad, in my opinion, was my stepsister. And she actually told me, told everyone in a Facebook message the other day, Facebook post, that family is not blood. It's who brings you in. In this church, it's like I did so much for them. I helped with, I was a greeter. I even did, did liturgy for the church. I read Bible verses. I even, helped a couple of families. I gave some baskets to families who were struggling during the holidays. And what happened was, it was like now I was a nobody. And that was the last time I attended that church. And then, so what happened was, when I left, yes, everyone kept begging me to come back. Oh, we miss you. Where have you been? Oh, you were a good friend. And one of the guys who was in that gay huddle, so the story was his dad died. And so what happened was, in 2021, my father and I were in the process of buying a house. And my dad told me that I needed to talk to the realtor. And unfortunately, I had to keep the line open. So anyway, she was going to call within the next hour. And what happened was, one of the guys in the huddle went on Facebook Messenger, because he was a friend of mine on Facebook, and started to harass me. I know you're out there. Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you, please? I don't understand why you don't want to. So I called him back. I called him. And I actually told him, I'm actually waiting for a phone call right now. Oh, can we talk for a little bit more? I'm in a relationship right now. I found a much younger guy, and he's a good friend. It's like the guy was a pest. And finally, the final shoe dropped between me and him, because this is what he did. On Facebook, he posted, so the guy likes to draw, and he drew pictures of naked men with giant penises, and the guys, a lot of them looked like they were like 20 years old, maybe even younger. And it's like, dude. Oh yeah, and one other thing I really hated about the guy, he had the same name as my stepdad. So, I mean, it's like the church was just loaded with pests. People who, with no fucking brain at all. It's like, and of course, another reason why I left the church, and here's the biggie, So it turns out the church's old pastor was good pals with George Hartwell. He even invited Hartwell to the church several times. And I cringed every time he came. But, I had to be a member of this church because guess what? My mom wanted me to be baptized. And they were one of the very few churches in town that wasn't mega. But, we got to be nice to George because he did so much for Grand Rapids. Yeah, he made it so lonely guys like me kept being lonely. And, I've said, it's like people don't want to walk a mile in my shoes. They want to stand there and laugh and point at me. Because they all look at me and say, well, why don't you date a fat girl? Yeah, I've dated several of them. Well, why don't you date somebody with kids? Well, I don't like being a babysitter. Okay? It's like, the sad truth is, we have too much fucking stigma in this world about the strip club industry. And I can't believe, in 20 years' time, almost 20 years' time since the strip club ban happened in Grand Rapids, the town, in my opinion, has only gotten worse. We have art prize. We have jobs. And I don't give a fuck. It's like, I like being with girls, but it has to be the right woman. And I know I get to, I guess I'm a bigger guy myself. I'm a short but fat guy. But it shouldn't mean that I should only be with somebody who is the size of a fucking refrigerator either. And I know it's very mean for me to say that, but with all these years of childhood trauma that I've been with, that I've dealt with, and it's like, and what bothers me is that there's more men in my life who kept telling me, bro is before hoes, and now it's my father. And, what bothers me about my dad is that he's compulsively watching Fox News. He's allowing himself to be brainwashed and gaslit by these people into thinking that Donald Trump was fixing everything. No, he's not. Hell, he's even, his Supreme Court has made it so that all these states that have pretty much outlawed pornography, internet pornography, they can continue to do so. I'm sorry, but not sorry. But porn has actually done more good than bad. And it's protected under the First Amendment, whether you like it or not. But the right, the point is, folks, is that when you got churches that do shit like put on these stupid stage shows with flying people playing violins, and then you got a pastor who, has several mansions and drives a Jaguar and, wears Armani suits and shit like that while people are, struggling from paycheck to paycheck. It makes me less want to go to church anymore. And I know I've been to several different churches in my life. I've been to churches that, this church I was telling you about, the one that I was going to. Yeah, they put solar panels on their roof. They even had discussions about Line 5. They are a pro-democracy church. And not only that pastor I was telling you about, the one who's friends with George Hartwell, he was a board member of the local Planned Parenthood. But George Hartwell foolishly stood with the DeVos family and Judy Rose and told our community that if you go to a strip club, you're a loser. And that maybe you ought to go to church to meet women. Yeah. You know something, man? My father, when we went to New Hope Church, my father met somebody there and she cheated on him. I've met way too many Christian women in my lifetime, and I've worked with them who were total fucking cunts. And you know what? South Park. Let's remember what South Park recently did. With the episodes where Donald Trump is in a relationship with Satan. You know, what happens is Jesus gets introduced to a Christian woman who is a total freak. Plumped lips and fake boobs and, oh my God. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are not far off with the description of what Christian women are totally like. They're fake. And it bothers me when I go on a dating site and yes, I do see women who are into Trump, who are into, and it's like, I put Jesus first in my life. Yeah, to me, when I put Jesus first in my life, it says to me that I'm also a Trumper. And I'm going to force my religion onto you. And it's a big turnoff. And that my IQ is room temperature. You know, this is what's wrong with Grand Rapids. And I know. I told you I have a cousin who lived here. And he couldn't even get a girlfriend. He had no job, no life whatsoever. Then he moves to Detroit a couple of years ago. And now he's married with 4 kids. Because he actually met somebody who likes him. And yet here in Grand Rapids, in all of West Michigan, it's like the women here who, it's like I have a good, folks, I'm not, I just have a good profile online. I don't post crazy shit or nothing. I post like a normal human being. But it's not enough, apparently. Hell, I even pay to join us. I've joined one of the big sites out there. But the tragic truth is, we need strip clubs. Because Grand Rapids is a lonely city. And it sucks that, folks, several months ago, while my dad was, laid up on, after a surgery in the hospital, I actually went to a couple of different strip clubs. I went to the Deja Vu in Lansing. But I also, for the first time ever, went to Muskegon's big strip club, which is Odyssey. And Odyssey is the best strip club I've ever been to in my life. Full nude. They serve alcohol. And they actually give the strippers timers. So, because for the longest time, some girls at Deja Vu, they'll only sit on, you pay for 2 lap dances, 2 for $20, and they only sit on you for 2 minutes. And they come up with a fucked up excuse saying, "Hi, I'm going to go somewhere else." It's like, but these girls, they're really nice. They're very cute. And, oh yeah, they give you real lap dances. They actually send you butt naked. One of the girls I actually chatted with 2 girls there last time I went to Odyssey. And one of them said that she drove all the way from Manistee to work there. And the other girl, Grand Rapids. Because she used to work at the old Sensations. Now it's something else. I forgot what it's. Now, Dames and Games or some shit like that. And people in Grand Rapids don't like the bikini outfit. The bikini bullshit. It's like people want to be treated like adults. It's like, I don't want a fucking soccer stadium. I just want to go hang out with cute gals. Okay? I don't want to hang out with another man who's going to shove religion and, tell me to give him money and yada, yada, yada. I just want, and it's like, I'd rather hang out with a stripper than to hang out with a Jesus freak. It's like most strippers are actually more intelligent than Christian women. Hell, look at Grand Rapids Radio. It bothers me. that one of the top-rated radio stations on the Grand Rapids radio dial is WCSG. And hell, look at what happened to them along, I can't believe it's been over 15 years. No, almost 15 years ago. There we go. One of their DJs turned out to be a fucking pedophile. Raped 2 little boys in a hotel room. And now he's in jail pretty much until he dies. And I'm like, fuck him. And the funny thing is, people have forgiven WCSG. They still listen to that fucked up station. Hell, I even say that the letters stand for We Crave Sexy Grade Schoolers. But, look, I have a question. When was the last time a stripper raped a young boy? When was the last time you heard on the news that some boy went to a strip club and one of the girls raped him? And look at all the churches. And they claim that the strip clubs are the problems. And I say, you're wrong. It's the churches that are the problems. And it's like this world, love is the cure for everything. And when you can't get love from a normal person, you might as well find something that makes you happy. And, for me, it's girls. I love women. And I've always dreamt about, I've had very little success because of my autism. And because of people judging me. And, Grand Rapids just being a sad, horrible place where if you're not a Dutch Hollander, you don't deserve much. And I know. It's like sometimes in life I just feel like, I'm just going to be that sad, lonely guy who goes to the strip club and sits by himself. Because life has passed me by. But people need to rethink about the adult entertainment industry. About the fact that strip clubs they actually give money to help children. They help communities. They're not the bad guy here. And I know, there are some folks in the strip club industry who are, who can be total assholes. I know, you got to remember that Harry Money, the man who owns Deja Vu, the man who started Deja Vu, is a convicted felon. I mean, he didn't pay his taxes for many years. And, he is a billionaire. But you also got to remember, too, that Harry Money grew up poor. I mean, I even heard that he grew up in a house that didn't even have indoor plumbing. And, he had no father figure. And, it just goes on and on. The thing is that I'd rather go to a strip club than a church. And I've told you about all the Christian women I've met in my life. They're all bitches. I just want to be with normal people. And strippers are more normal than most Christian women. So there. God bless. But anyway, you got to remember something. That in the Bible, Jesus hung out with prostitutes. And probably even worse people than strippers. And yet, we got to censor the truth. Because in their minds, Jesus is all about giving wealthy more money. And hating gays, and hating this, and hating that. So, that's what I have to say about that. If I had more time in the world, if I wasn't dealing with people who controlled me, I'd probably go to a strip club, and more money, too. I'd probably be going to a strip club anytime soon. I hope I can find the time. I actually have a free entry card for Odyssey. So someday Fingers crossed. All right, folks, I got to get going with my life. Good day. Good luck. We'll try to get Biatch of the Year, up pretty soon. But bye for now.